She hadn't made a sound in days. Her ribs pressed against thinning skin, her eyes dull with a silent ache, and her paws cracked from wandering roads that led nowhere. In the middle of an abandoned lot behind a row of broken-down garages, she curled beside a rusted tire, as if it might shield her from the cold night. People had passed her before, some glancing, some pretending not to see, others tossing her scraps like she was part of the street. But none of them stopped. None of them looked at her the way a soul should be seen. Until one stranger did. A soft rustling came from the bushes. She didn't even lift her head. Hunger had taken away her instincts. But then gentle footsteps crunched over the gravel. Slow, hesitant, respectful. A voice followed. Quiet, almost afraid. "Hey there, are you alone?" The girl crouched, maybe in her 20s, bundled in a thrift store hoodie and faded jeans. She had a grocery bag in one hand and sorrow in her eyes, like someone who knew what it meant to be left behind. She didn't reach out. She just sat. The dog didn't move. "I brought food, not sure if you'd want any," she whispered. The bag rustled again. The scent of chicken drifted out. The dog sniffed but didn't rise. The girl opened a plastic container and slid it gently across the pavement. The dog blinked. Her body screamed for it, but her spirit didn't believe it was real. Still, she dragged herself forward, inch by inch, until her tongue touched the food. That first bite cracked something open. The girl smiled. "There you go. That's yours. No one's gonna take it." For the first time in weeks, the dog ate without fear. The girl sat back, cross-legged, her hands in her lap. She didn't speak again until the container was empty. "You've been out here long, haven't you?" No answer came, but the look in the dog's eyes spoke of days and nights without kindness, without a name, without hope. "I'm Mia," the girl finally said. "I don't really have much, but maybe we can figure something out together." She extended her hand slowly. The dog stared. Her breathing quickened, but she didn't back away. Her paw, trembling, reached out and touched the stranger's fingers. Mia's eyes filled with tears. That's all I needed to know. It wasn't a rescue in the traditional sense. There were no sirens, no official animal shelter trucks, no dramatic background music. Just two lost creatures crossing paths at the right time. One human, one starving dog, both silently screaming to be seen. Mia returned the next day. She brought a blanket, fresh food, and a worn-out leash she'd found in her apartment's laundry room. She didn't try to pull the dog. She let her choose. "Whenever you're ready, girl." The dog looked at the food, then at Mia, then at the leash. Her legs shook, but she stood, slowly, carefully, and stepped toward the girl. It took them 30 minutes to walk 4 blocks. Mia stopped often, knelt down, and whispered reassurances. "You're safe now. I got you. No one's gonna hurt you again." They reached her apartment, a one-room studio that smelled faintly of lavender and leftover takeout. It wasn't much, but to the dog, it was the closest thing to heaven she'd ever known. Mia set up a bed by the radiator. She placed a bowl of water nearby and another container of soft chicken. The dog, still unnamed, curled up on the blanket and stared at the walls, unsure if it was real. Mia watched her for hours. She didn't push. She just kept whispering, "You're okay now." That night, the dog had her first dream in months. It wasn't of running or being chased. It was of warmth, of being held, of someone saying her name, though she didn't have one yet. Morning came. Rain tapped against the window. The dog didn't flinch. Mia brewed cheap coffee and sat beside her new companion. "I was going to name you Hope," she said. "But that feels too easy. You're more than that. You survived all this without help. Maybe Faith." The dog tilted her head. Mia chuckled. "Faith it is." But even as they shared their first calm morning, neither of them knew what the next night would bring. Because someone had noticed Mia walking with the dog. And not everyone had kind intentions. The knock came just after sundown. Mia had just finished feeding Faith, 2 boiled eggs and some rice. The dog was finally wagging her tail, cautiously, like a memory of what joy once felt like. But the knock on the door changed the rhythm of the room. Faith froze. Mia stood up slowly and peered through the peephole. A man in a reflective vest stood there, arms crossed, eyes sharp. Behind him was a woman holding a clipboard. "Animal control," the man said, tapping the door. Mia hesitated, her heart pounding. She looked back at Faith, who had backed into the corner, trembling again. She opened the door slightly, leaving the chain latch on. "Hi, can I help you?" The woman stepped forward. "Ma'am, We received a call about a stray dog being taken off the street without reporting it. Are you housing an animal that hasn't been registered? Mia gripped the edge of the door. She was starving. Dying. I couldn't leave her there. That's understandable, the man said, voice neutral. But there's a procedure. Do you mind if we come in and take a look? Faith whimpered. Mia turned, knelt beside her. It's okay, girl. I'm not letting anyone hurt you. She stood up firm. She's not just an animal to me. She's someone I rescued. Someone who finally trusts again. If you take her to a shelter, she won't survive. The woman raised a brow. That's not your decision. Mia's voice cracked. Then make it mine. Let me adopt her. Legally. Right now. What paperwork do I need to sign? There was a long pause. Finally, the man pulled out a tablet. You're serious about this? More than I've been about anything in my life. It took 2 hours. Forms. Signatures. Proof of residence. A visit scheduled for the next week to ensure the dog's well-being. By the time they left, Mia collapsed on the floor beside Faith. We did it, she whispered. Faith licked her cheek. The days that followed were filled with quiet healing. Faith learned to walk without fear. She discovered the joy of belly rubs and the comfort of Mia's old sweaters. Mia began leaving the TV on soft cartoons when she went to work, so Faith wouldn't feel alone. Then, one evening, Mia returned home and found the apartment door slightly ajar. Her heart dropped. She rushed inside. Food bowls knocked over, blanket crumpled, paw prints smeared across the kitchen tiles. Faith, she called, panic rising in her throat. No answer. She tore through the hallway, into the bathroom, the closet, under the bed, nothing. The window was open. Faith was gone. Mia ran into the street, calling her name. Neighbors peeked from their windows. A man on the sidewalk pointed toward the alley behind the building. I saw a little dog running that way about 10 minutes ago. Looked scared. Mia didn't stop to thank him. She sprinted, breath short, shoes slapping the wet pavement. Faith, she yelled. She searched alley after alley, flashlight in one hand, her voice raw. She played recordings of her own voice through her phone, the ones she used to calm Faith down. She left treats and blankets near dumpsters, under benches, behind fences. Anywhere Faith might hide. Hours passed. The night deepened. Mia sat on a curb, sobbing into her palms. Her voice was hoarse, her legs numb. Then, a sound. The faintest shuffle of paws against gravel. Mia lifted her head. From behind a stack of crates, 2 frightened eyes peeked out. Faith! The dog didn't move. Mia reached into her pocket and pulled out the bandana Faith always wore, the one she slept with. I missed you, girl, she whispered, laying it on the ground. Come home. Faith stepped forward. Her tail wasn't wagging. Her ears were down, but she stepped, one trembling paw at a time, toward the scent of safety. When she reached Mia, she collapsed into her arms. Mia held her like a child. Never again. I swear, never again. But someone had left the apartment door open, and Mia couldn't shake the feeling that it hadn't been an accident. Because the next morning, a note was slipped under the door. You don't deserve her. Give her up. Or next time, she won't come back. Mia stared at the note for a long time. The words felt like ice, slicing through the warm cocoon of safety she and Faith had built. Her hands trembled as she folded it and tucked it into a drawer. Out of sight, but not out of mind. She didn't tell anyone, not yet. Fear gripped her tighter than reason. All she knew was that someone had been in her home, and that someone didn't want Faith there. She changed the locks the same day. Faith sensed something had shifted. She stayed close, barely letting Mia leave her side. Her tail no longer wagged. She didn't sleep in her corner anymore. Only next to Mia's bed, her nose pressed to the edge, ears twitching at every creak of the floor. At work, Mia was distracted. She found herself staring at the clock, anxious to get back home. She left early when she could, stopped answering most messages, and kept Faith's leash clipped to her belt even inside the apartment. And still the fear lingered. One night, Mia woke to a sound, metal tapping against glass. She froze. She listened. The sound came again. She crept to the window and peeked through the curtain. Across the street, under a flickering street lamp, stood a figure. Not moving, just watching. Faith growled, a low, unearthly sound Mia had never heard from her before. She stepped away from the window and called the police. When they arrived, the figure was gone. There's nothing we can do, the officer said. Unless they're on your property or make direct threats, it's not a crime. Mia wanted to scream. Instead, she nodded. That night, she couldn't sleep. Instead, she opened a notebook and started writing. Every event, every time, every detail. She added the note. The missing dog incident. The figure at the window. She wasn't just afraid. She was preparing. The next morning, she installed a camera above her door. 3 days passed. Then the camera caught movement. A man in a hoodie. Gloved hands. Trying her doorknob. She turned the footage in to the police. This time, they took it seriously. "Do you recognize this person?" the officer asked. Mia hesitated. Something about the way he moved felt familiar. Then it clicked. There had been a man across the alley when she first found Faith. He was fixing a car. He'd watched them quietly. She didn't think much of it at the time. Mia dug through her photos, selfies with Faith. In the background of one, taken outside the old garage, there he was. Blurry but unmistakable. She handed the photo to the police. They ran a search. He had a history, animal cruelty, 2 arrests, 1 dismissed, 1 pled down to a fine. He had once owned a dog. Neighbors claimed he beat it. When it escaped, he posted flyers offering a reward. Then threatened a shelter employee who told him the dog had likely been rehomed. Mia's stomach turned. The man wasn't trying to steal Faith out of spite. He thought she was his. Police increased patrols. A protective order was filed. But Mia knew that paper wouldn't stop him if he really wanted her dog. So she made a decision. She contacted a rescue network, a small group of volunteers who specialized in rehoming animals under threat. They offered safe houses, transports, even emergency relocations. "I don't want to give her up," Mia said. "She's my family, but I won't risk her being taken." The group offered a compromise, a temporary move, a cabin in the countryside, owned by one of the rescuers. Remote, safe, no neighbors for miles. Faith wouldn't be alone, and Mia could stay with her. Mia packed up everything important, left a note for her landlord, and drove through the night with Faith asleep in the back seat. They reached the cabin by dawn. It was small, wooden, rustic, surrounded by tall pine trees. But it was warm, peaceful, the kind of place where no one watched from across the street. Mia and Faith adjusted slowly. Days turned into weeks. Faith began running again, chasing butterflies in the meadow, barking at squirrels, wagging her tail with abandon. Mia watched her, heart aching with relief. One afternoon, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Mia sat on the porch with Faith curled by her feet. She scratched behind the dog's ear and whispered, "We found our place, didn't we?" Faith looked up at her, eyes shining with the same quiet love that had bloomed in a dark alley on a cold night when no one else had seen her. They had both been broken once. Now they were whole. Months later, Mia returned to the city when it was safe again. The man had been arrested for violating the order. His case went public. Animal rights groups rallied. The city passed new laws. Faith walked the streets with her head held high, a red bandana around her neck, a registered tag on her collar, and a family that wouldn't let her go. She was no longer the dog starving in silence. She was home. And for Mia, the girl who had once walked by pain and chose to kneel instead of ignore, she'd gained something more than a pet. She found love. She found purpose. And in that quiet, humble act of holding out her hand, she had saved a life. And maybe, just maybe, been saved in return.